Okay, I think we'll start. Good morning, everybody. So, welcome to Procurex 2026. My name is Jeanne Copeland, and I'm the chair for this morning's session in the Keynote arena. Delighted to have you here, and hopefully we're going to have a great day of fun, frolics, and living and loving procurement. So, just for those of you who don't know me, I'm Jeanne Copeland. I'm the CEO of Greenville Procurement Partners. I have been in the procurement business for too many years. I've been through fantastic journeys in procurement and still wake up every day loving it. And I know I'm probably in a small elite club, but hopefully today will bring more of you into this elite club of living the dream of procurement land. I'm truly honoured to be the chair today. It's a great honour for us in the Greenville team to be recognised for the work that we try and do in the public sector. So I'm honoured on behalf of my team to be your chair for this morning's session. However, it's not about all that's happening in the Keynote arena, although we want you to stay here for the next at least hour. There is a lot of stuff going on in the whole event. There's exhibitors, and it really is incumbent on you both as buyers and suppliers. So can I just ask for show of hands, how many of you are suppliers in the audience? Okay, it's about 50-50. Okay, so that's good. So that's a match made in heaven. There should be enough buyers to meet with each individual supplier and vice versa. So make sure that if you're a buyer that you're getting out and you're talking to the people who've dedicated their time as suppliers to come and exhibit today, and vice versa for suppliers. This is your opportunity to nab, corner and seek an introduction to that buyer of your dreams that you're hoping to sell to. There's lots of other sessions going on in the other spaces, so make sure you're looking at the agenda and you've identified which sessions are of real interest to you. And as I said to you, it's a real networking opportunity, and I was just talking to one of my colleagues earlier this morning. We don't do enough networking anymore. COVID killed it. It absolutely killed the meet and greet, the getting to know people informally. Now the only time you ever meet anybody is across the table. If you're lucky enough to ever get an invite to a tender clarification meeting, I had my first one in 27 years. One time only have I ever been invited to a verification meeting by a public buyer. I think we need to do more of that, and I lost the tender. And I lost by 6 marks. So I obviously wasn't performing well enough on the day. They told me the interview didn't matter. But it was an interesting experience to have, in all the years I've been involved in procurement, not to have met people. When I started off in procurement, and as I said to you, it's a long, long time ago, I started off in the ESB, in the purchasing department, as we used to call it, where it was the reality of typewriters, telexes, and postal tenders. Now, many of you, I know by your faces, wouldn't know what a postal tender ever looked like, but the heartbreak of tripping up the steps of the ESB on a Monday morning at 12 o'clock and getting caught and not getting your tender into the box before 12 o'clock was a disaster. Now we still have the same problem, except it's an electronic button and you just push it on e-tenders, and we still miss the deadline. So things have changed. Procurement decisions were less regulated, less accountable, but a lot of things have changed for the good. Now we see an awful lot more systemised procurement, don't we? So I think that's really good. We see it's much more regulated. We're aware of the directives. Directives have been here since the 70s, but you'd swear they were only invented last year. And there's a new one pending, so more about that later. We're much more compliant. I mean, I know the suppliers think the procurement is not compliant, but sitting on the supply side, but also really engaging primarily with the public sector, I can tell you, suppliers, it's fairly compliant, you know what I mean? There's obviously the slight little tweak, but for 99.9% of all the experiences we have, it's done as compliantly and as fairly and objectively as possible. It's now a profession. It's not at the professional standard that I'd like it, but it is now a profession. I consider myself a procurement professional. Okay, and there are qualifications that you can get, and I think that's really important. And there are career paths in many organisations, not enough organisations, to stay in procurement for life if you want to. However, there's still a couple of common, I suppose, problems. Fear being the biggest emotion that we all experience in procurement. We're all afraid of our lives. We're afraid of our lives to make a tender decision. We're afraid of our lives to get the regret letter on a Friday evening that says regret letter to Greenville. Oh my God, can you stop doing that, please? Call it notification letter. So we're still afraid of it. Suppliers are still unhappy when they lose. That's never going to change. It's a race. You know, we all know the sporting analogy. Shane Lowry, my hero, by God, did he absolutely kill it to death on the last day on Sunday. And Rory McIlroy performed, but only just squeaked by, literally, with one hole to play, or one shot. I think the common agenda between buyers and suppliers is we both really consider it's overly complicated. And I think it's overly regulated, it's overly complicated, and I think we really need to look to what might happen with the presidency. We have a unique opportunity in Ireland with the EU presidency happening from July onwards, with the directives, the new version of the directives being negotiated at that, so hopefully we'll see significant change. So a lot of things have changed, some things stay the same. There are new agenda items, I think, that we're all also trying to grapple with. The first agenda item is the whole digitalisation project. And I'm hosting the digital panel later this morning, so you'll hear an awful lot more about that. The key thing that I didn't understand was, and really, I'm not a digital expert, I know a little bit about procurement, maybe a good bit about procurement, but I know nothing about IT systems. What was the difference between AI, digitisation, and digitalisation? Because they seem to get used interchangeably, but they're not the same thing, but yet they're interlinked. So I think we'll hear more from various panel members on that whole topic. But that is a really unique opportunity, I think, for both sides of the market to make significant change for the better. But also there are risks and there are challenges. You know, you'll hear about people concerned that they're going to lose their jobs because of AI and things like that. To me, if AI can do your job, it gives you an opportunity to do something better. Do you know what I mean? Because that's the way I'm looking at it, rather than seeing it as a threat. If you're doing a job that AI can replace, then it might have been a little bit boring in the first place. So let AI do all the boring crap, and we'll do the interesting, smart stuff. That's my view on it. I never think of a problem without thinking of it as a bright opportunity. The next one is the real, I suppose, bedbug at the moment. We're very much on the cusp of this, is the whole, and you hear the word geopolitical impact in the world. It is everywhere, but it is, don't get me wrong, this is going to have a serious impact. It always has had a serious potential for impact on the procurement market, but at the moment we are, in an unknown field, aren't we, in terms of the way the wars are going in the world, the impact on the world, the impact on the shrinking supply market, the vulnerability or the viability of suppliers in the supply market. That's a real challenge for us to keep good levels of competition. Price inflation. That's a serious issue, where we're looking at supply shortages, we're maybe looking at fuel shortages, we're maybe looking at particularly, is it SSD cards or memory card shortages in the whole IT space, and I'm sure there's loads of other areas where there's a shortage of product, and it'll be he who pays the highest will probably get the first order fulfilled by a supplier in certain categories. That sounds a little bit like back to COVID days as well. But I think, again, always looking at the possibility of an opportunity. I think, and you hear the discussions going on at European level about the move away from the major global players that are not necessarily, I'm not saying they're all bad, but some of them could do things a little bit better. And I think moving to local. I think we need to look more to our local indigenous companies, our local European companies. I think we're in the club. We're proud to be European club members. So I think we need to, really realise that opportunity and get out there and try and encourage more participation of suppliers, large, small, and Irish, where possible and where compliant, because obviously we can't favour the Irish suppliers, but we can absolutely facilitate more engagement from them. As I said to you, we're on the cusp of this new directive. It will really be interesting to see. The last directive, which came in 2014, was about the modernisation. I think they failed on that exam of modernisation. The next directive, they're not even saying it's going to be modernisation. So I don't know what the aim is of the new directive, but it'll be interesting to see what can be achieved. I think what we're all looking for on both sides of the fence is simplicity. Make it a little bit simpler for us to run procurements, make it a little bit simpler for us to engage with procurement. Unfortunately, that's still going to mean some suppliers will win and some suppliers will lose, but it's a race. That's just life. Unfortunately, we can't do anything about that. Another major issue, I think, for us in the procurement arena at the moment is the whole agenda of sustainability. And so digitalisation is a core part of a lot of what's going on today in the other sessions. Sustainability is still on the agenda. Are we making progress? Absolutely. Are we delivering real impact from public procurement? I would say the jury is out yet. I see a lot of us tick boxing still procurement. I don't see the contract management. Like, we put procurement answers into all our tenders now. I have to say, very few of our clients come back to us and say, well, Jeanne, okay, talk to us about your sustainability credentials and give us reports and things like that. Now, in professional services, it's harder, but in other categories, it's easier. And maybe their experience is different for other categories of suppliers. So I think we do need to engage more with it. We need to move away from it still being a slightly tick box exercise feel to a real impact protocol. Part of this is also more engagement with suppliers. So there are 3 tools that buyers can do that really benefit both the buyer and the supplier. Get out there and meet your suppliers. Today is a fantastic opportunity. Do proper pre-market consultations on e-tenders. Get out and talk to suppliers. Know what the capacity is in the market, so really engage with them before you ever go to tender. And then can you, for God's sake, and most of you who know me from training, will you move away from goddamn open tendering to multi-stage procedures? Bring them all into negotiation, but stop using open tendering, which is like a dead, it's a dead process. You get a tender out, you get a tender back in, you make a decision, you never meet the supplier, and you make an award, and then you live to regret it. So can we get more involved in multi-stage processes, negotiated procedures, single-stage procedure with negotiation if it's below threshold, a competitive dialogue? They are the ones, you need to be talking to your suppliers much more. So I think that's not just on the sustainability agenda, but also on the agenda, the whole agenda of supplier engagement. Because there are anecdotal evidence that in some categories we have reduced engagement from suppliers. And if we have reduced engagement from suppliers, that is dangerous for you as a public buyer, because that also leads to price inflation. My last bugbear, and as somebody who's been in procurement for 40 odd years, it's still the unloved, under-resourced profession. So many of my clients are here today, and many of you work as 1 or 2 or 3 people teams spending millions, and that's not just enough. You know what I mean? And it's the pain and the fear, and we never get the time to do procurement right, because there just isn't enough resourcing on it. It's worth 22 billion on the island of Ireland, and there's thousands of people involved in it, don't get me wrong, but most of them are not professionals. Most of them, procurement is not their day job. So I don't know what the number is on full-time dedicated professional resources, but I can guarantee you it's not enough to manage that 22 billion as effectively as it should be. So I won't go on about the negatives. Enough about, I think what we want to do now is, time-wise, I think I'm okay. We'll move on now to hear from a number of speakers. So there's been a slight change to the agenda. Aidan Sweeney has unfortunately been unforeseeably delayed, so his session won't happen until 1:15. So now we're going to hear from 2 keynote speakers initially, and then we're going to have a break, and then we're going to hear from the Minister. But we're going to hear now from, I was just talking to Gareth from the HSE, so we're going to hear from Gareth Morton from the HSE, the National Procurement Director. And, the HSE, 5 billion in procurement. Holy God, that surprised me, Gareth. And all the years I'm around procurement, I didn't realise it was still that big. A lot of it's spent on drugs, so if you, but anyway, I'm sure there's a lot of other interesting stuff being bought as well. So we're going to hand over to Gareth, and then Gareth is going to be followed by Angela. And it's interesting that I note that both of them come from a private sector background. And, I think that dynamic of the private sector knowledge and insight and commercial focus is really beneficial to public sector procurement. So I'm going to hand over to you, Gareth, and thanks a million.